This week in IT SPARC Cast, AI is still inventing new case law for lazy lawyers. Microsoft enters the quantum realm, and Lloyds Bank says thanks for all the hard work. Don't let the door hit you in the butt.
Ooh.
Greetings and welcome to IT SPARC Cast. I'm your host, John Barger.
And I'm your host, Lou Schmidt. It got cold again.
It did get cold. It's Friday, February 21st. IT SPARC Cast is a digest of the IT news over the last week with insights, opinions, and a little sarcasm from two experts, each with over 20 years of experience working in IT or for IT vendors. And now, the news bites.
Well, let's dive right into it. And of course, we are now in 2025. And what is the thing that everybody's going to want to talk about? These days, it's AI and quantum. We have some of both for you. Unfortunately, it's not together yet. I do think it would be much better if it's together. But let's go ahead and talk, first of all, about AI hallucinations. And this comes to us via Reuters. And a U.S. personal injury law firm, Morgan & Morgan, sent an urgent email out this month to more than 1,000 lawyers, which I don't know how many billable hours that is, John, but whatever. They probably have to pay to read them. Artificial intelligence can invent fake case law. All right, so a federal judge in Wyoming just threatened to sanction two lawyers at the firm who included fictitious case citations, right? I mean, this
was something that was in the news 2 years ago. In 2023, we were hearing about this happening. How can you possibly be still making this same mistake? I mean, this isn't, we're talking about attorneys. We're not talking about uneducated, I would think that anybody should know.
We're IT guys. We don't exactly hold attorneys way up on a post.
Well, but I hold them accountable. They, at the very least, they should understand the liability of using a tool that can do bad things to them or for them.
Let me fill in another piece of information for you on this one. Why haven't we been hearing about this as much? Because it's obviously been happening. Well, their case was against Walmart. Do you think Walmart reads the documents, goes through them? I've worked with Walmart on an IT basis, right? I've been to Bentonville. I've been through their process. They read stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like one of the lawyers admitted in court filings last week that he used an AI program that hallucinated the cases and apologized for what he called an inadvertent mistake. Somebody was hallucinating there to let that thing release. This is AI's penchant for generating legal fiction. Case filings have led to courts around the country question or discipline lawyers in at least 7 cases over the past 2 years. It's just what we've heard about.
Yeah, the thing is that I'm still just shocked that people haven't figured this out, especially highly educated people like attorneys haven't figured this out, that it's been in the news. People have been burned by this. Attorneys have been burned by invented case law. This exact problem has come up over and over again. And it's like the guy that keeps beating his head into the wall and like, why haven't you stopped yet? I just don't get it.
There's a really good point here. The Walmart case stands out because it involves a well-known law firm and a well-known company.
Right.
Both of which are giants, right? But examples have cropped up in all kinds of lawsuits since the chatbots and ChatGPT. So John and I are going to sit here and tell you this isn't going to be, AI is eventually going to replace paralegals, possibly even lawyers. We're not there yet.
No,
Okay.
no. And
Just
the thing is that, you almost have to use AI today. I keep saying that AI is not going to take your job, but somebody using AI will. And AI is a critical function to any, especially somebody as, paperwork dependent as an attorney. And that at this point, AI is going to be an invaluable resource, but it is not an infallible resource. By the way, a human is not an infallible resource either. You need to vet out. We're going to talk about this in the next article as well. You need to be fact checking. You need to be making sure that what you have is accurate. You need to read the document. This is the equivalent of a 13-year-old in 8th grade having AI write a term paper for him and then turn it in without even reading it.
Oh, we
Right?
know that never happens.
We know that never happens, but I mean, come on, like, do your homework. Yes, accelerate your work, get things done faster because of AI, but don't be lazy about it. Come on.
Well, speaking of AI,
Yeah, so this is interesting. We're not going to go too in depth in this, but a really interesting article I saw in TechCrunch and also in the New York Times that Mira Murati, who's the former CTO of OpenAI, has now established a new company called Thinking Machine Labs, which is another artificial intelligence startup. So reason I wanted to highlight this is that we're seeing a lot of movement in this space where a lot of the forward looking AI companies, Google, Meta, Microsoft, OpenAI, Anthropic, and others, are seeing people move on to build their own startups. And the reason I think this is important is something that we all should be paying attention to is that I feel that we're at the cusp of another turbo boost on the acceleration of what we're going to see happen in the AI industry. And in the last 2 years, we have seen the most rapid development of technology in history when it comes to AI. What OpenAI was 2 years ago with ChatGPT 3.5 compared to where we are today with not just OpenAI, but all of the other tools. Grok 3.0 was just released. That thing is amazing.
it
We saw
really is good.
OpenSea come out. We saw an AI model we talked about last week from Stanford that was trained for $50. I mean, holy cow. We're at a level of acceleration that's unprecedented. But that's about to get eclipsed by what we're about to see from all these startups coming from all these different companies. So pay attention to what's going out there. And oh, by the way, if you're out there looking for a job and your resume doesn't have AI all over it, then you need to rewrite your resume, because that's what people are looking for right now, is that somebody that can help them with AI.
Or at least
Absolutely.
is comfortable with AI. So, I mean, I would have to say this. Remember when folks, there's probably a lot of folks who are watching this that weren't in on the early network transitions.
Yeah.
John and I were. My first network I ever built was an encrypted ASCII Baudot across VHF. It wasn't even the internet, right? But it was to relay orders and using teletype. So at the beginning of this revolution, we all thought it was going to be like IBM, and we had Nortel, and we had Bell Labs and all that stuff. Xerox, they invented a lot of the basic concepts, technology base that became the internet.
Yeah.
They're nowhere near it now. A lot of them are out of business. Lucent, out of business. Nortel, gone, right? So the point is, we have not yet really begun to see, is it going to be Google or Microsoft or whatever that brings us this?
You know, there's a
I don't
few
know.
points I want to bring up as part of this. Is one is what I feel is about to happen is the commoditization of AI to some degree. And I think that we're going to see a situation where, think of the operating systems that you're using, whatever operating system is in front of you. And there are really, 5 to choose from. There's Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, iOS, right? Those are what might be in front of you right now. And it honestly doesn't really matter which operating system you're using. It all comes down to preference and workflow. And you can achieve pretty much the same thing for almost the first time in history. I mean, you can do a full PowerPoint on your iPhone or your Android device. You
Yes.
can get the majority of work done. We're at a point of time now that your average person doesn't need a computer. Right?
That's the point. And I would jump to something like a Linux if I had like a specific niche, highly technical thing that's just well optimized for this. Day to day, I'm on a Mac a lot.
Right. But I think we're about to hit that when it comes to AI. It's not going to matter whether you're using a tool from OpenAI or from Anthropic or from Meta or from Microsoft. It's really going to all achieve the same goal. They're going to have basically the same functionality. One might be a little bit better in one way or another, but the connectivity between them and the APIs between them are going to be very compatible. And you're going to be able to swap in and out tools, models, and agents interchangeably and build what you need. And I think that that's where we're going to be heading. And that's something that'll be really exciting, that as people start leapfrogging each other, we're going to see that it's the orbit that is actually the exciting part, where the agents are becoming really new cool things, and the tools that are going to be becoming the really new cool things, and the models behind it are, yes, still accelerating and getting better and better and better, but it really doesn't matter as much which one you're using.
I think it may end up mattering in specific, well, what we used to call vertical use cases. There'll be stuff optimized for healthcare. There'll be stuff optimized for manufacturing. We're gonna see a lot of that.
But for general usage, it really won't matter that much.
I think day to day we'll see.
But I do want to throw one more piece out there as kind of a cautionary tale, especially for folks that are in my age range, Lou's age range, that
stay off my lawn.
Yeah, that, so I have a really good friend of mine who is an IT director, and every time we talk about AI, he says, well, it's not really AI. It's just some machine learning that in lookup tables and things like that. You can't be that dismissive over what's going on out there right now. And hopefully if you're listening to us, you've already figured that out, because we're so AI focused here. But I was listening to another IT focused podcast. And when I talk about podcasts and I agree with what they're saying and I want to give them credit, I will mention them. But if I want to maybe send a dig at them, I'm probably not going to mention who they are. So I won't mention who this podcast is here. But one of the hosts, mentioned that she was really worried about people that use AI LLMs instead of traditional search. And I thought about that, and she's in my age range, and I was like, that's a bit of the this new tactic, that's not blah, blah, blah. It was a bit of a curmudgeon-y kind of comment. And I was actually thinking back to a conversation I had with my wife this weekend, where I literally said to her that I'm actually using a couple of different AI tools instead of search, to the point now that when I actually do a search with DuckDuckGo or Google or whatever, it actually feels like going back and using the yellow pages, and that it's really feeling antiquated to me. And it's because that what I'm getting from the LLM is much more curated to what I'm looking for. And a lot of times I actually use voice. So I give it I don't even have to type it out. I give it a much more broad description of what I'm looking for. So that response comes back and is curated. Now, I think what this podcast host was concerned about was the accuracy of the information. And we know about LLMs and hallucinations and such. But I'll tell you what, if you go to Google and you type in, I need to know about this, whatever the search term is, and it sends, what's it going to do? It's going to send you to a website. Are you going to automatically trust that website that it's 100% accurate, even if it's a newspaper or some other well-known news organization?
Especially now. We've seen it, trust but verify. You need to check you need to be a skeptic, right? And I think that's John, I think that's sort of what you're getting at, is you need to come at this from multiple directions. One of the things I see happening in AI is there's going to be a huge push. It's already starting to clean up the input information, right? And try to trim bias out of it. I got to say, I have a standard test I run to see where the bias of a particular model is. I was really impressed with Grok 3. It was very nuanced.
I've been using it. And it's been great, and everything from image creation to giving real time information and such has been pretty good. But
let's talk about some other innovation.
Yeah, I know you're really excited about quantum, and I know you're looking for quantum AI, but we got another type of quantum.
I want quantum AI. It's the ultimate marketing buzzword awesomeness. Okay. I mean, if you're going to do a architecture and it doesn't have AI and quantum in it, I don't want to talk to you. You don't get my VC money. But let's talk about something really interesting here. Microsoft announced this week something called the Majorana 1 quantum computing chip. And it uses a new type of superconductor. And I noticed this was really interesting because it moved into the news. There was a big burst, and then it went poof. And the reason it went poof is because you have to really read the details and understand some physics to understand what they actually did. So I'm going to try to break it down for you really quick. Quantum computing has the potential to significantly increase the throughput of certain complex jobs. One of the reasons is when you have a qubit, this quantum computing bit, you can entangle it with other bits, and quantum entanglement is instant. So for the first disclaimer here, I used to blow up reality for a living on a particle accelerator. So this is like coming home, virtual particles and all that stuff. Let me break down what they actually did. So Microsoft research working with DARPA came up with something called a topoconductor wire. It's a new type of superconductor. So when people talk about, oh, it's a new state of matter, no, it's solid. If you're looking at it from that perspective, let me explain a little more. The company had to build this atom by atom for precision. So this was literally nano assembled. So they're going to have to figure out how to get out of that trap as far as how to put it together. But it is an absolute game changer because it's indium arsenide with aluminum. It's stuff that we can get, and it has some really interesting properties. What do those properties mean? So when they talk about it being a new state of matter, they're talking about it from a quantum perspective. And when you're in the quantum's all about rolling the dice. It's all statistics. And now I can hear some people out there scoffing, but I would highly recommend you look up the two-slit experiment. It's really fascinating. And what that is, so if I blast a bunch of electrons through two slits, nobody's looking, it blasts out all over the place. If somebody's looking at it, you get two. It's called the observer effect, and it's real, right? So the quantum stuff is bizarre. So what the Majorana is, the idea of this was first postulated in the 1930s by one of the physicists who was working with Enrico Fermi. You may have heard of that guy. He's one of the fathers of the atomic bomb, and he built the first ever nuclear reactor under a handball court in the University of Chicago. Maybe don't build it there. They saw it. They said, that's great. Get it the hell out of here. Okay. So these are not exactly lightweights in physics. But what's cool is when you build this qubit, this unit of compute, this quantum, the stability is a problem. We can build these now. You have to supercool them. You get them down to superconducting because all of these quantum, they're called phase states. These phase states are sort of the states of matter they're interested in. What they've managed to do is get a very predictable phase state that can be switched, like a digital circuit can be. So certain areas, it's called topological phase states, because it depends on the actual shape of the atoms that are doing it. And this thing, but if I can link these up, if I can link millions of these up, I can do incredible stuff. So what this breakthrough was all about was getting a more predictable, lower noise method of creating these qubits in such a way that they can use existing and new methods of error correction, because quantum states fluctuate a lot, to do computing. So it's a huge breakthrough. If you read the physics paper, and there's a link, if you go to the azuremicrosoft.com, their blog, quantum blog, they actually break it down for you, and they have a link to the Nature research article they published. I'm warning you, it's deep going. All right. If you haven't studied phonon, crystal theory, and electrical engineering or higher physics, it's going to hurt your head. But the end result of this is the type of processing we need to like crack crypto like that, make random numbers not so random, all that stuff. This was a breakthrough. And that's what they're talking about. The fact that it came from a Microsoft research effort for a company as well established Microsoft speaks very well to them being able to pivot into new areas. And that's why I thought it was worth calling out.
Yeah, so Lou and I discussed this ahead of the call, whether we were going to talk about this article. And by the way, just a little inside baseball. Lou and I talk for half hour to an hour before we do any recording, and it's like a PhD level class for me just listening to Lou talk about all kinds of random stuff. It's been great.
I just have a weird freaking resume, okay?
He's got a lot of great information. But we decided that this was very important to talk about, as again, as we were talking about with AI earlier, this is something that's coming. And when we're saying some of the AI things that are coming, these other startups, but quantum is coming, and it is going to change the nature of compute. And it's something that, as IT professionals, we need to at least be somewhat aware of what's coming so that we can be preparing for it. And what is it going to mean for our jobs? For example, the whole concept of encryption is going to have to change, because the way we're doing VPNs and encryption today is about to get turned on its head. Whether that's tomorrow, next year, or 10 years from now, at some point, it's going to completely change by its nature. So we need to be prepared for that. And there's so many other areas that quantum computing could potentially impact what we do, that we just need to be reading up on it and staying fresh on it. And that's why we wanted to talk about this.
The interesting thing is it's that quantum, the most of our encryption security is dependent on the ability to pick big, unique prime numbers, right? You always, and actually get true randomness. It's much more difficult to get a true random number than you would think. There's a couple of microprocessors that implement it well. In the 90s, SGI had something called a lava rand, when somebody figured out that the movement of the two fluids in a lava lamp is truly random. They put 6 of them in a box with different colors, put video cameras on them, generates true random numbers. Quantum computing breaks some of the rules. So it's just, yeah, it's going to be amazing. But, I'm interested. Can we go from something fairly smart to something fairly dumb?
Yeah, whether it's dumb or just mean, we'll have to discuss that. So the Lloyds Banking Group out of the UK has started to initiate a significant reorganization in its technology and engineering divisions. They say that their aim is to enhance the digital capabilities and operational efficiencies. So what's going on here? First, the bank is reviewing its UK-based tech and engineering workforce, and they're going to change the roles and responsibilities of any employee hired before November 2024. So that's not that long ago.
November 2024 was when they started bringing online their outsource.
So they started bringing on their outsourcing in November 2024. And now if you were hired before November 2024, which at the time of this recording was, by the way, less than 4 months ago. That means that you think you're sitting pretty, you've got this brand new job. Oh, by the way, in the UK, where you're generally much more protected than you would be, say, in the US from a hiring law standpoint, now something fishy is afloat. What has been communicated is that Lloyd plans to create 1,200 new positions in their software engineering, platform engineering, and data engineering departments. And the exact number of redundancies has not been disclosed, which is leading a lot of concerns. One of the concerns is that these roles might get relocated to the Hyderabad, India location for Lloyd's Technology Center.
We've never heard that one before.
Right. And part of the thing here is that the hires in the Hyderabad facility are not being impacted. So there's no reductions going on there, no reevaluations. So let's talk about the timeline here and how, again, this would be really concerning if I were working in those departments. The staff were informed that there were changes that were going to be made on February 5th. That, by the way, if you were hired more than 4 months ago, we're going to reevaluate your position here. Oh, by the way, that assessment's going to happen over the next week and will be done by February 12th. So they're going to be real thorough if you're evaluating that many people in that little amount of time. And then the outcomes will be conducted and communicated by March 18th. So just over a month later. And the new structure is set to commence by April 1st. So rapid firings. And this seems like so I'm not sure exactly what's going on there at Lloyd's, if they're having some sort of major financial issues. We do know that they're planning on, the bank is advancing something called Platform 3, which is focusing on investment tools and automations and streamlining of operations. And this seems to be part of that. But oh man, this is a bad time to be working over at Lloyd's.
This is not, and the Register was the one who really dug into this, and they're based out of the UK. The thing is, if you're working in our industry, the IT industry, you're like, really? They're still doing this?
Yeah.
Really? You know, with as many people as have had trouble with the outsourcing model.
Well, this is more offshoring than outsourcing, but still, it's, it just seems that this can't always be the answer to your problems, is just to lay off a bunch of people and hire somebody in another country cheaper. That just can't be your problem. Although, on the other hand, we keep talking about remote work and remote work being possible. I guess you could, if you could work from anywhere, I guess you could work in India as well. But
that is the challenge.
Yeah, but on the other side of that, have a heart, be a human about it. So, but you know what? Speaking of bad news, it's now time for the CVE of the week. All right. So the CVE of the week is our weekly segment where we pick a common vulnerability and exposure entry that you need to know about and how to mitigate ASAP. So today, Lou is going to take us through something that happened with Palo Alto.
Absolutely. So folks, if you've been watching us for a while, you noticed I've been moving a little past droning on about CVEs. I could take every week, take 10 minutes and just read CVE numbers, and I would easily fill 10 minutes. And you would lose consciousness probably within 45 seconds, right? I'm not interested in the CVE so much as what happened when this CVE was published and what's going on. So let's take a look, because there's a point to this.
I'm actually going to jump in here. I want to hear from you. Are you more interested in hearing about CVEs, and maybe even more CVEs every week? Or are you more interested in hearing us talk about bigger security issues like what we talked about last week with the UK wanting backdoor access into iCloud? Or do you want us just to talk more about news articles like the AI articles we've been talking about? We want to hear from you. So send email to feedback@itsparkcast.com or send us a note on X @ITSparkcast. Back to you, Lou.
Thank you. Absolutely. We really do care about this. Look, at this point, if you're doing security or you're deploying applications in your career and you're not monitoring Security Week, which is where we got this from, you're not monitoring CVEs, you're not monitoring like Unit 42 at Palo Alto publishes some good stuff. If you haven't come up with a way to monitor your posture so that you're ahead of the announcement from the company, if possible, it's not a lot I can do to help you. All right. You need to do this. You need to develop this if you're going to be security minded. I am not even deploying these things, and I am watching for it because it impacts everything. What happened here and why are we bringing it up? So Palo Alto on basically late last week confirmed a network exploitation of a firewall vulnerability. So the CVE came to us. This came to us via Security Week. Severity was 8.8 on the crapometer. So here's the challenge. The meter goes to 10. So they released the details of this particular exploit, I believe, 8 days ago, maybe 7 days ago. And when they did that, they published some details about the technical exploit. What happened after that is they immediately started getting reports. By this report I have here, by Tuesday, February 18th, security company Graynose had seen attack attempts coming from nearly 30 unique IP addresses. Now, look, folks, we've both been in IT. We both maintained operational infrastructure. We both maintain operational infrastructure now because everybody in the family is going to come to you if you know how this stuff works. When a patch drops with a security vulnerability, patch your stuff. Why am I saying this? Because this is being combined with another CVE that was patched in November 2024 that I believe I addressed. It's CVE 2024-9474, exploited along with 2024-12. This CVE is, and we all love the numbers, right? 2025-0108 is the number on this one. They're using this one, finding the old ones, breaking into firewalls. That patch was released last November.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Lou, we addressed this on episode 14 back in November. You did address this. Yeah.
So it appears that some folks are not listening. Forward them this webcast, right? I know that it's always a problem with network system stability when you get a new piece of thing out there. There are tons of unpatched routers and switches out there. This is your flippin' firewall, right? Get a maintenance window, load the patch. What the hell? Okay, I get it. I get seeing exploits after a week, right? You're busy, stuff's going on, you haven't looked at it yet, you haven't run it through your testing lab. But if you take this 8.8 and hook it up with those 9 pluses that are out there, which, by the way, you haven't got the patching, you got busy during the holiday season, you're owned. Now, I know you're saying, oh my God, I installed this patch, I introduced all kinds of problems. Congratulations. You can be definitely owned or maybe a little unstable. That's your choice. But I got to tell you, what gets me on looking at this stuff is the fact that we are seeing exploits on old CVEs. 3 months, your firewall? What the hell? All right. John, what do you think about this?
I think you're obviously a little grumpy about this, and maybe have a sip of water. But I agree. I mean, these shouldn't be lasting this long, especially when it's something as critical as your firewall. And I know that all of you listening to us have already patched it. You're not the ones that are being impacted by this. But if you haven't, you might want to just go check, make sure that all your firewalls are patched, and actually take care of those because I mean, this is really
a bunch
important.
of breaches on Cisco reported last week. And if you're running Cisco and you're not tracking breaches, pencils, cup, go sit in a corner. Okay.
Yeah,
at some point, everything's going to catch on fire.
And my take on this is that I'll pick more on Cisco than Palo, but I think that it's probably true across a lot of different companies, is that rapid release and getting product out tends to override security. And we see a lot of zero-day vulnerabilities out there. We see a lot of problems. And all software is going to have bugs. I'm not trying to claim that a company needs to have a 100% perfect software release, but at least when they do announce it and they say we've got a patch out, we've got to pay attention, we've got to deal with it. And I've talked to so many different IT directors and IT admins that are overworked, and I get it. Find an AI agent that searches for these things for you. Find a workflow that helps you get there, and use the tools that exist to work smarter, not harder. But these are things that can't slip through.
And we're going to look into this in greater detail.
And
over
keep listening
time
to this podcast, and we'll keep telling you about them. And make sure you're listening to us as soon as we release, so that you get the newest information.
Certainly, but this one is so egregious. Please go deal with it. You cannot. For folks who are like, well, I can't risk the stability of my business, you're risking the security of your business.
Yeah.
And you got to choose the lesser of the evils.
That is going to wrap up today's episode. We want to hear from you. Do you have topics you want us to cover? Do you feel differently about what we talked about with AI? Do you think that we should do more on the CVEs? We should focus more on AI, more on quantum. What do you feel we should focus on? We do read everything that you send in. You can send us email, feedback@itsparkcast.com. That's feedback@itsparkcast.com. You can hit us up on X @itsparkcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below. We read every single email, comment, and post that's sent to us, and we do respond in almost every case. So please do that. Please also hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. That's going to really help this channel grow. If you are continuing to listen to us and you're getting good information, you feel it's helping you on your day-to-day job, then tell your friends and colleagues about us. That's going to also help us grow. So that's going to, again, wrap this episode. We'll be back next week with more news and opinions from the world of enterprise IT.
Thank you so much. I'll calm down.